Cool. I'm assuming everyone can see the slides. So welcome to the second town hall. The last one was 2 weeks ago. This one will be the December one. The feedback we got last time was that this was useful. People got a chance to get updates, so we'll try the same thing again. So let's get started. And this is being recorded so that we can, people who are asleep or people who aren't able to make it can go through. Let's get started first with hiring. So we have, I think we had around 8 people who were announced last time. We have now 6 people who, one has already started, and then we have 5 others starting over the next 4 weeks across testing, Go, Clojure. We have our first UXR starting in early January, and then Ali joining on the marketing side, and we have someone here in Zug working on our HR admin starting beginning of January, which will help us a lot with payroll-y stuff. We still have a lot of open positions. Our main priorities are still Go and Clojure developers, trying to get another designer on board, and BD for Status Open Bounty. So people to kind of help bring in new companies. So if you know of anyone, go check out the job site. There's a referral bonus for everyone who's a co-contributor. So, please check it out. We have marketing. I'm wondering if Johnny's on the line, if he wants to go through this stuff.
What's up, Nabil? Yeah,
Hey.
I can.
All right.
I can go through it quickly. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on in Q4 of this year. We've pushed out a bunch of email, social content, a lot of press releases, especially around certain announcements. Our inclusion in the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance is one of them. Our partnership with Siren Labs is another one. So now we're just going to prepare an end-of-year report similar to what we did for Open Bounty, and we'll push that out, and then campaign reporting and benchmarking for future campaigns. Q1, we've got similar content creation in the works now. We're also working on a video series, which is going to be hosted by Crypto Wanderer and Ethereum Nick. It's just a monthly video that'll be pushed out, kind of like a little insight into status. It's called The State of Us. And then Hutch is also working on, it'll probably be bi-monthly, a community competition series. The first one is going to be a writing competition where we're going to ask the community to submit writing samples regarding a story about how Ethereum impacts their life. So that is mostly Q1 campaign stuff. We've also got a lot of strategy and planning in the works. Like Nabil, you just said, we've got a really, really talented strategist, Ali, joining us. We've identified 4 consumer personas, and we're starting to create bespoke acquisition funnels for each one of them, pushing out specific content for each one. We've also got current audits of all of our social channels. We're about to kick off social listening of all of our channels so we can optimize those. We've got a current test plan in the works, looking for a third-party research partner to help us with testing, and that will just help us with brand positioning and all of that. And then finally, once we've got all of these audits and research done, we can actually kick off our brand positioning work and look at some of the other companies in the space and just make sure that we're positioned in the right way. We've also got some stuff going on for Status Open Bounty. We're currently redesigning the landing page just to make it easier for users to navigate and then hopefully drive conversions. And then we're also working on a bespoke onboarding email campaign, nurture campaigns for both developers who log in and organizations who want to post bounties. We've got paid search running now, driving traffic to the site, and we're going to continue to optimize those. And then another exciting opportunity that's come about is this idea or this project with TrueBit and EthPrize. They're conducting a research study and they want us to design the report and then host bounties that come out of the report on Status Open Bounty. So more to come on that. And then obviously we're going to be creating campaign and driving traffic leading up to the beta. working with the product teams and everyone to make sure that we get the right amount of conversion and traffic to the site when beta comes out. So a lot, but that's mostly it.
Cool. Thanks, Johnny. We have some partnerships as well to get an update on. We're working closely with the LES2 team at Ethereum. Frank and Ivan are driving that. We've also partnering with Consensus, specifically Bounty's network and Gitcoin, to develop a standardized smart contract with them. So I think that's still underway, and the LES2 stuff started, I think, in the past 2 weeks. Company miscellaneous stuff. The German, for those who are in Germany, the German company is almost completed. We just need to now get payroll and benefit stuff set up. The Spain spec account is also very close to being completed. So a lot of the company setup things are almost done. And then we have our company offsite, which is basically where everyone can kind of meet each other in person, slated for February or March. And that survey is going to be sent out today. So people can fill out the dates that work best for them, and we'll just pick the ones that the majority of people can make it to. So those are the updates from the various cross-functional areas. Now we'll go straight into the development side of things. So the one thing that I've kind of noticed over the past couple of weeks just monitoring is that one area that we could definitely improve on is in prioritization. So basically figuring out what the most important things are for people to work on. We'll go through now what our priorities are for Q1, but if you're relatively new, like we have a lot of new people, and it's completely fine being overwhelmed with 58 different ideas in the ideas pool, plus all the different bugs and features in the very different repos. So lean on, people that are there to help you out, the PMs, Oscar, Ivan, Roman, Anna, Andre, any of us can basically, you can just chat with, or even your peers who have been here longer, just chat with them, be like, hey, I'm thinking of working on this. If you're kind of, you're driving forward an idea and saying, I think this is super important, then talk to fellow team members who've potentially been here for longer to kind of make sure that, yes, this is important, and this is what success looks like, these are what the metrics are, this and that. And then it's yours, take ownership, execute on it, and, make it your baby. So, we want to make sure that people have the flexibility to be able to work on things that are important. So if you're convinced that your idea is going to be the next big thing, the next big feature, completely fine. You should drive it. You should own it. Just make sure you're working with other people who have been here a little bit longer to make sure that this is kind of fleshed out properly. From a company perspective, the two areas that we are driving in Q1 is kind of getting everything ready for MVP. So launching a status, a stable version of status that pretty much anyone can download that's got the critical features, as well as a revamped version of status of Bounty. And we'll go through both of these right now. Chad, if you're there, you want to jump on and start talking about MVP?
Yeah, hey guys, I'd love to talk about the MVP, and that's a good segue talking about the prioritization, because the MVP is all about prioritization. We'll really need that focus to get a launch happening. So just diving into it, what is an MVP? It's really great to agree on the definition. And so an MVP stands for a minimum viable product, and it's the leanest product we can make to validate our ideas. And so that's really, really important, because there's many ideas that we could potentially do, but they might be better suited to a 1.5 release or a 1.7 or something down the line. And we have a focus on the user and their goals rather than feature lists. And that's really important, because there's this cute diagram on the right. If you were trying to validate an idea of, say, transportation, and if you started with a wheel and you gave that to someone that wants to go from A to B, they couldn't go anywhere, even though that may be the best engineered wheel. So it's okay, let's give them two wheels and let's give them a body. All throughout this long stage of development, they couldn't get anywhere. So we couldn't get the testing, we couldn't get the feedback. And so it creates a really weird cycle where you may build something that no one has ever used and doesn't meet their needs. Uh, the MVP process, alternatively, is more like the bottom part of that graph, where you can build a skateboard and you can build it quickly and you can get from A to B. But then the users might say, hey, it's not very stable, or I want to go faster. And then you can add on these different features until you might end up with a car. And you end up with a similar product, but it's user informed and it gets in the hands of users really quickly. And of course, our end goal with Status is learning from the data, iterating, and moving towards a product market fit. When we have the right product and we have the right market, that's a huge challenge for Status because Ethereum and blockchain, it's all new. There aren't any like mass products yet, but hopefully by getting that feedback, we can move it in that direction. Okay, next slide. So what is the MVP goal? Status has core foundations around dApps, chat, and payments. And so the goal of the MVP is to do just enough to showcase each core foundation, validate our assumptions, and inform future work. And it's really important to keep this in mind because, for example, for chat, say, we don't need to have every single type of chat feature out there. We just need to have basic chat that can be a platform for, say, exchanging payments or discovering apps. We just have to get to the core essence of what we're trying to do. And it's good to keep in mind some principles. So yeah, next slide. So we really want to do more with less. Again, we don't need every feature. We want to consolidate and streamline. And that has some benefits, like we'll have less bugs, less to test, and more for users to focus on in the core run. And of course, focusing everything around dApps, chat, and payments, which is the core of the Status mission. And we also want to make sure it's high quality and works really well. We don't want to put out anything buggy, so that's a huge focus. And that's going to be a challenge because there's so many parts of the app and scaling issues and devices and platforms that we really need to lock down the app as soon as possible before we can like seriously optimize. And it's really important to remember that the MVP is just the beginning, not the end. This is day one of Status out in the public. So there's a long roadmap of features and development and evolution we can do. We're just trying to get out there. It's like a baby being born. Can't walk, doesn't go to school yet, but it's just the very first step. And ideally, in this MVP, we want to work on creating aha moments. So imagine someone that doesn't know much about Ethereum or cryptocurrency. They can get the app and they can do these core functions and say, oh, I get it. That's really important for the educational component. So you might be wondering, what does this look like and how does it differ? I've pulled together a couple of slides with Andre that gives us like a potential glimpse of what this MVP could be. And this is based on like first impressions, and it's the beginning of a conversation with the team. So I'd really like to like follow on with a discussion about what we can do and how we can get to the MVP as quickly as possible whilst meeting our goals. And a part of that is a very simple sign up. Andrea was working on this based on like feedback and familiar patterns. But the thing I'm really excited about is on the next slide is a new app structure refinement. So right now the app's pretty large. It's got many different sections. It's got sidebar. It's got buttons. In order to deliver on the MVP, we can focus it down and concentrate on these three core aspects: home, wallet, and profile. It's unambiguous, it's clear and focused. It's a standard tab-based UI, and we won't be burdened with the sidebar. And so if you're a new user, you're coming into the app, there's only really like three things to focus on, which is like the core of Status. Home, which is the consolidation of chats, contacts, and discover. And it's kind of how like chats actually works right now, but we're removing a lot of redundancy throughout the app. And we're focusing the attention on chat and the browser experience, as well as having a clear call to action to start new chats or install dApps. And so pretty much everything you need is in this one screen. But we also have a wallet that's very important. So for the MVP, it's basic wallet functionality. It's very similar to what we have now, but streamlined and stripped down. And we also have the profile, which is basic profile and settings. Everything is just one tap away. It's very easy to get to, and it's very clear to understand. And it's also familiar for new users, which is quite important. So next steps. Andre prepared a prototype in InVision that everyone can click through. I'll post the link. And I've also done an app comparison doc, which kind of shows the differences. And the doc's really interesting because on one column it's what the app is today, and the other column is MVP. And it's so simplified and so streamlined while still maintaining the core essence. Also, really important to discuss the changes. There's a new channel in 26 beta, or you can leave a comment in InVision if you have specific design feedback, and really getting to the point on agreeing on the general deliverables. Since I've started, there have been so many amazing ideas flying around, but we don't really have consensus on what we're going to deliver, so that's really important. So over the next week, I definitely want to hear everyone's feedback, and yeah, we'll get to that point of agreeing on the MVP and committing to building it. After that, we can formalize the deliverables and create GitHub issues, so we know exactly what we're doing and get on to building it. And of course, our goal is to ship in March. So that's a pretty ambitious goal. To do that, we'll really need your help and ideas on how we can, again, get to the condensed version of status that can be our first step out in the world and ship. And of course, it's important to remember that there are like many features and many ideas. We can roll them out with a roadmap at 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So by being deliberate about what we're not putting into status now really helps us with a roadmap for the future, and something we can plan to do. So that's pretty much it. It's just a concept right now, but I'm really looking forward to discussing it and hearing everyone's thoughts, which we can do after the town hall. So definitely check out the InVision link, which I'll post, join the Slack channel, and check out the doc.
Awesome. Thanks, Chad. Next is the next vision of status and bounty. All right, Sean, take over.
Cool. Hi guys. So I've just put together a couple of dot points and notes just around what's happening with Open Bounty in terms of our path forward. I'm hoping that this isn't news to anyone, at least the team members that are working relatively closely with Open Bounty. So hopefully it should be relatively straightforward and you're across it all. But it's just to make sure that the broader team is across what's going on and what our plans are moving forward. And obviously I'm looking for everyone's input and thoughts. So just in terms of things that we've captured, originally what I started doing is putting all our kind of ideas and features that we wanted to develop for Open Bounty into the ideas repo, and kind of soon started realizing it's kind of getting out of hand, and I wasn't able to kind of track progress and be able to prioritize the functionalities that we wanted to deliver. And so what I've done is I've just created an overall idea and then separated the actual functionalities and the bugs that we need to be addressed on its own repo, on the Open Bounty repo. So you can kind of find it there. Now there are two projects that have been set up. One essentially more focused on features for our developing community, and the other one for organizations. Now the only reason I've kind of done that is just to be able to kind of create focus when we're thinking about the issues, because a lot of them actually go together and you kind of can't solve one without doing a few things together. But I really see both of these kind of mini projects being executed simultaneously at the same time, because we don't want to build a whole heap of features for our organization community and get a lot of organizations on board, and we don't actually have a lot of developers. So we're just going to get a bunch of bounties and no one there to solve them, or vice versa. So we kind of want to make sure we grow both of these together, and I'll be working closely with Johnny to kind of drive traffic from both aspects together. And obviously, all the features that we're working towards should be towards the strategic goal of Open Bounty becoming self-sufficient and standalone. And by that, and this is just the feedback that I've been getting so far, so I've been having a lot of conversations with different organizations, and the questions I've been asking is, well, how reliant is Open Bounty on status, and how reliant is it on if status goes down and what happens to my bounties, and how reliant am I on Open Bounty staff and status staff to actually do things for me versus me just being able to go in and set myself up. And we're kind of not there, so there is a lot of human interaction and steps that we need to do, and it kind of takes away from being a kind of like a service offering that we can just put out there and for anyone to use. So that's what we want to try and get to. And then the other thing I guess I want to try and establish is a regular cadence of delivery. So as Chad mentioned, we want to really be able to prioritize and come up with some sort of release plans and MVPs. I think the same sort of applies to Open Bounty. So what are our release plans? What are the kind of chunks of functionality that we're going to group together and deliver? And the other thing I'm struggling with, and I guess I need the team support with, is in terms of estimations, because I'm just going to put a feature out there, but I don't know if it's a small piece of work or a gigantic thing that's going to take 6 months to deliver. So we kind of need to get a little bit better about estimating our work to be able to actually set realistic goals and timelines and seeing what's important. So if we just kind of I've put some examples of some of the developer features and organization features. And I've just kind of mentioned the top 3, but if you go to the project page, you'll actually see the progress. So there's 2 that I can see that are in progress at the moment, and some of these have, I think, been open for a little while, and some activity has happened on them, but I think we've kind of lost track. So I just want to pick up the pace on them and kind of finalize some of these. And then the 3 big ones that I see that we should kind of probably focus on in terms of the developer stuff, and a lot of this is on track already, is just some around the UI aspect. As Johnny mentioned briefly, we are partnering with L4 and TrueBit and looking towards the next month or 2. There could be opportunities for a lot of bounties to be posted on Open Bounty, and if we all of a sudden have an influx of bounties, we need to be able to just provide a little bit of a better UI to be able to sort, filter, and find bounties. And as Johnny mentioned, also the updated landing page. So they're the kind of things that we want to focus on initially in terms of developers, but there's a whole raft of other features and functionality that could be beneficial as well. And then on the organization side, the biggest thing I think at the moment is probably just the workflow that I think is a little bit confusing, and no one really sure exactly what the workflow for organization sign up is. I know that we've documented it and we have a process, but it's the process from my perspective is, again, not standalone, and if you kind of do the steps out of sync, then things go wrong and get missed. So we just need to kind of think about that, I think, a little bit. Again, if we're getting a lot of organizations coming on board, I think that'll be an important item. And then some of the other things are around the dashboard for organizations and this issue that keeps coming up around, and again, there's lots of different issues around this, around the concept of how we can close bounties and returning the funds to the poster. Now that could be because we want to cancel it, or if someone from the core team solves it, or there's lots of different, I guess, use cases for it. But this thing keeps coming up, so I think it's probably something of value to deal with. Anyway, so those are kind of just my initial thoughts, and I guess from my feedback of conversations I've had externally and internally. So please give me your thoughts and suggestions on these. I guess next steps for me is I really want to hold a workshop, especially around that organization onboarding, because I think there's a lot of thoughts in people's heads around how this works and could work. And I think a lot of it depends, obviously, on the smart contract side and how its execution which I don't fully understand, and also from an actual website perspective. So we'll have a workshop around that. And then the other thing, as I mentioned, is estimating stories and being able to set targets. Because I've kind of, if you go to that ITA page, I've set some dates and milestones in there. That's just me pulling some numbers out of the air. So I really want it to be based on some realistic figures. And I guess obviously the next step is join the swarm and let us know if you're interested to work on Open Bounty.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, RX and Chad.